Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LO3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. Yeah, it's nighttime right now in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I decided today to check out my subscription from AmericanFreePress.net. And this is an interesting article that came out recently, all right, which is the 25th, 26th issue of this year. And it's in reference to unity from all different walks of life. And this actually is entitled A History of the Original Rainbow Coalition. I like what it says here, the prelude. There was a time in American history when black, white, brown banded together to make life better for communities in need. This was so frightening to the power elite, they had to kill it. It is by Dr. Edwards DeVries, excuse me. In 1969, hosted a national meeting in Oakland, California. They called it a Conference for the United Front. And it attracted activists from numerous radical groups across the country. Speakers at the conference included representatives from the Communist Party USA, the Farmer Workers Union, Students for Democratic Society, and the Young Patriots Organization, or they call it YPO, and of course, the Black Panthers. Speaker for the YPO, William Vesperman, was an interesting fellow. He wore dark glasses, a military jacket, a beret, and a belt buckle with crossed pistols and a Confederate battle flag. Both the jacket and the beret also had Confederate flag patches on them. Though a resident of Chicago, Vesperman spoke with a heavy, drawling Southern accent. The Young Patriots he represented were dislocated Southerners and border states, many from coal country in West Virginia and Kentucky, who had migrated to Chicago to find work in the mills, only to end up unemployed and living in a North Side ghetto commonly referred to by the city's South Side blacks and West Side Hispanics as Hillbilly Harlem. Vesperman and his YPO, along with Chicago Southside Black Panthers, were among the founders of the city's Rainbow Coalition, a name and an idea that Jesse Jackson would famously appropriate more than a decade later. Yep, an opportunist. I'm just I got this in a PDF format, so please be patient. Before Jackson and the modern-day Democrats had determined upon the path of identity politics, the Rainbow Coalition was an embodiment of an idea that disenfranchised people of all races, whether white, black, brown, red, or yellow, could work together to create a new society that would benefit every group. The exact opposite of the political model employed by the Rainbow Coalition and the left-wing politicians of today. In other words, Jesse Jackson is a poser. In the 1970s to the 1980s, this author grew up and was very segregated was a very segregated city. Poor whites lived in the north suburbs. Poor blacks on the south side, and the browns, Hispanics, were found on the west side. Over a decade after federal courts had allegedly desegregated the Chicago public school system, the schools still remained segregated in place. I attended an ostensibly desegregated elementary school that was still demonstrably segregated. This was achieved by assigning white teachers to teach white students, black teachers to instruct black kids, and Hispanic teachers were assigned to teach Latinos. One day, when it was either the first or second grade, a black kid transferred to our school in the mid-year and was mistakenly assigned to a white classroom. By the next day, I was one of the only few white kids whose parents hadn't pulled us from class. Eventually, the principal assured the parents that the black boy had been moved to an appropriate class. Chicago's neighborhoods were not just segregated by race; they were segregated by ethnicity as well. In other words, the blacks divided into neighborhoods for Jamaicans, Africans, Creoles, Haitians, etc. Like the Hispanics were divided as Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Colombians, Peruvians, Brazilians, Hondurans, etc. Even the whites was divided into neighborhoods for Poles, Italians, Frenchmen, suburbians, Gypsies, Germans, Greeks, Brits, hillbillies, etc. An Italian would probably sooner have a black family move into the neighborhood than a Polish one. The same was true of other races as well. For example, the Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans never mixed. Hillbilly Harlem was actually a slum densely populated with poor whites who had migrated north after World War II, primarily from Appalachia. Their neighborhood had a culture that was very different from the other whites in Chicago because they displayed Confederate battle flags in their taverns and country music spilled out of their jukeboxes. Hy Thurman and his older brother Rex grew up in Dayton, Tennessee. In 1967, they dropped out of high school and hitchhiked to Chicago to find jobs. When they couldn't find them, they sold their blood to blood banks for cash. Eventually, they also found work as day laborers. They also joined a street gang called the Goodfellows, which soon joined forces with community organizations having the income join, Jobs or Income Now, that demonstrate for housing and welfare reform by fighting Mayor Richard Daley's political machine and the Chicago police. Organizing against police brutality was a top priority for the Goodfellows because their members were constantly stopped by police and subjected to unlawful searches and sometimes beatings. One day the police raided joint office that was located in a church. Sympathetic to their efforts, a police officer shot an unarmed Goodfellow in the back as he was running away. This senseless act of murder by Chicago's finest was a catalyst for the Goodfellows join and other groups of hillbillies to join forces and organize into what came to be known as the YPO. The YPO proudly proclaimed itself to be by and for hillbillies. The group was very organized. They formally constituted elected leaders, drafted an 11-point program, and adopted the Confederate battle flag as their official symbol. The Thurman brothers recruited new members from among all the hillbilly Harlem's pool hall, tavern, and honky-tonks. In this recruiting effort, Thurman encountered Bob Lee of the Illinois Black Panther Party, who quickly realized that he and Thurman, through working in different sides of town among different races, were essentially fighting the same foe. One moment. And doing so with the same tactics, thus in the fall of 1968, Lee invited Thurman to join him to address a mostly white Methodist church where Lee was scheduled to speak to a group of white middle-class liberals who were curious about the non-militant side of the Panthers. At Lee's request, Thurman also gave a presentation on the efforts of the YPO. While the audience treated the black Lee as a curiosity, they were openly hostile to the white Thurman. Recall how I earlier remarked that a white in Chicago would prefer to have a black move into his neighborhood than another white of the wrong ethnicity. That's the question. The liberal middle-class whites were far more tolerant of Lee's Black Panthers than they were of Thurman and his hillbilly patriot group. You see what's going on, folks? This is interesting history about this. So all these people talk about white privilege. Puh, do your homework, study your history, talk to people in these movements if they're still around, and come back and talk to me, because you got no merit. Lee couldn't believe what he saw and heard. He watched his middle-class whites attack poor whites with a brutality that even the ethnically and economically segregated blacks would have never let loose upon one another. Lee rose to Thurman's defense at the meeting and afterwards suggested that the two groups join forces. Initially, Fred Hampton, the chairman of the Illinois Black Panthers, expressed strong opposition when Lee formally proposed the unification at the Panther meeting, but after a few weeks of observing Thurman and the YPO, Hampton and the rest of the Panther leadership became enthusiastic about the merger. It was then that they christened their alliance the Rainbow Coalition. The Panthers even voted to adopt the YPO symbol, the Confederate battle flag, after merging with it with their black fist symbol. The YPO has never considered the battle flag, or as they call it, the rebel flag, as a symbol of racism. They call it the rebel flag because they saw it as a symbol of rebellion. The Panthers thought of the rebel flag in exactly the same way. Okay, so just to let you folks know about the original Black Panther Party in Illinois. They weren't offended by the battle flag, the Confederate battle flag, which is started from Virginia. Okay, so hopefully all you folks, the sensitive folks, the trophy kids, keep on listening, all right? I'm going to continue on here. Under the banner of the rebel flag, the Rainbow Coalition include the Young Lords, a radical Puerto Rican group. Together, the blacks, whites, and browns held citywide unity rallies, speaking out for police reform and against poverty. They held rallies in places like Grant Park and occupied government buildings to demand better health care and housing. Gang members of all races were drawn into the coalition. They eventually organized their own neighborhood clinics and social services. Even the American Indian communities began to join them as they started free breakfast programs. Then the middle-class whites started to join groups dedicated to helping the poor. When that... shoot. Dang it. Hold on there, folks. This is a little bit of a drop in the ball here. Got that. To join groups dedicated to helping the poor. When that happened, Mayor Daley began to see the coalition as a rival to his political machine. He had police shut down the 3 breakfast programs, ordered the health department to close their neighborhood health clinics. The FBI also infiltrated the group and immediately began to sow seeds to discord that would tear apart the interracial coalition. Okay? During that time, if I'm correct, that was J. Edgar Hoover, the closet queen, and the Nazi sympathizer. Okay? That's what you call a Nazi sympathizer. J. Edgar Hoover. Remember, he was influenced by the Nazis on how to collect information. And plus, he did send some of the agents to Berlin to see how it was done. You can look it up, folks. I'm not lying to you. I did a show about this a few years back. Just 5 months after their big meeting in Oakland, on December 4th, 1969, the Chicago police conducted a pre-dawn raid of Fred Hampton's home, and in the process murdered the leader of the Panthers. This sent Thurman and other coalition leaders into hiding. Vesperman broke away from the coalition, moved to New York, and formed a political party he called the Patriot Party. After he established offices up and down the East Coast, the feds raided his New York office and other offices, effectively ending the enterprise. Shortly thereafter, the police the Chicago police chief accused the YPO of conspiring to detonate a bomb and arrested much of his leadership. They even arrested people from allied churches and community groups as co-conspirators. Still, the Rainbow Coalition preserved eventually defeating Daley political machine in 1983 when they succeeded in electing Harold Washington as the city's first black mayor. I remember that too, and if I'm correct, Daley was a bigot too. If I remember, there's a claim he did use some racial slurs, and he shot himself in the foot. Jesse Jackson declared himself the leader of the Rainbow Coalition in 1984, using it to launch his insurgent presidential campaign. He would ride the coalition wave all the way through his nearly successful 1988 run. David Axelrod, who later served as police chief of staff to Barack Obama, drew on what he learned as a Rainbow Coalition activist when he managed Mayor Washington's 1987 re-election campaign. He would retool the same tactics in the 2008 to maneuver Obama into the Oval Office, though many insist Obama was ineligible. If I remember, Philip Berg, who was chairman at the time for the Democratic National Committee in Philadelphia, said he was born in Kenya. Yeah, look that up. Very interesting claim. And just to let you know, too, Philip Berg I think he's a lifetime member. I believe he's still a lifetime member of the NAACP. Okay, look that up. But as modern Democrats like Jackson, Axelrod, and Obama, the community organizer, took over the Rainbow Coalition, even using this strategy and methods, they discarded the coalition's appeal to racial unity and class solidarity, replacing them with rigid racial identity politics, and of course, they tossed aside the banner under which all races had united in the original coalition, the Confederate battle flag. He was an editor of Dixie Heritage newsletter. And it's very interesting, folks. This is why you don't really hear about this. I wonder why. Because they don't want you folks to know the truth. But you know what? I like to share this with everybody. And I can tell you one thing. When you unite people from all walks of life as one human race, multiple folks' consciences from different bodies, you scare the living hell out of the tyrants out there. They want us divided. They want us to be ruled. And what you're seeing right now, this coup d'etat is a very good example. You better really got to pay attention when you get involved in these movements. This is why I'm not afraid to call out Black Lives Matter and all these other clowns out there. Hired fools. Always beware of the propaganda machine. Mind control 101. Doesn't matter if you're Black Lives Matter, Ku Klux Klan, American Nazi Party, or even if you hang out with Richard Spencer, David Duke, don't mean a damn thing to me. It's unimpressive. I treat them all equally. Irrelevant. Garbage. Based on their actions. Unethical. So, the past is today's greatest teacher, my friend. My friends, excuse me. It's always good to know these things. Never jump the gun. Because that's what they want you to do. Is let you folks know. They want you to say, you're dumb, you're ignorant. We'll control you. Happened with Pol Pot and Jim Jones. Well, that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, when we send something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Just to let you know, this is subscription only. Okay? And what I'll do, I'll leave the footnote to where you can look it up if you want to subscribe to American Free Press. I'll put it up there as AmericanFreePress.net, and I will leave it on my speaker page. If you want to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me/LokiLuck3. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.